The Nick of Time podcast, everyone. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's going to be a good one.
Two. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to episode 12 of the Nick of Time podcast. We have a very, very special guest with us, Liv Teixeira.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I got her name right. She is a person I actually came across on social media, TikTok, as a matter of fact. She's a life coach. She's got a lot of things going for her. So, Miss Liv, if you could introduce yourself, tell the people a little bit about you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, TikTok, who would have thought? But I absolutely love it. My name's Liv. Like you said, I'm originally from the East Coast. I've lived a few years in LA. I love both. And I'm a life coach. I work with people on the relationships that they have with themselves or their significant other. I help people with their careers, their business plans, all of those things. At the end of the day, I consider myself somebody that helps people figure out the why to their questions, and I help them create new perspectives that are conducive to the goals that they want.
And that's super awesome. Also, by the way, you are like the second guest, I believe, that has been on the podcast that I haven't met like personally. I had these four gentlemen who were prior like service in the Air Force. They're rowing across the Atlantic Ocean like in support of like mental health, like
No way.
on like a rowboat. Like yeah.
What are they like doing for food?
Yeah, it's like one of those like it's like a 28 footer. They have like MREs, like like sealed meals and stuff like that. And yeah, it was very interesting talking to them. And they came across my podcast. I don't know how. Like I said, it's not like I have a big following or whatnot, but yeah, so you are the second guest that I've been able to talk to who I'm still meeting as we do this, and I think that's so awesome to be able
Yeah.
to do that. But yeah, let's jump right into it because you got a lot of good topics that I followed, and the initial video that like I saw that I was like, oh, this person's pretty awesome. They have great content. Was your video about confidence and
Oh, okay. Yeah.
how that is something that needs to be practiced and exercised on the day to day or as much as you can. Can you tell the people out there when you hear the word confidence and basically elaborate on that video that I stopped on to explain what that means to you?
Yeah. So confidence is one of those things that people think they either have it or they don't. And I think that it's a little more simple than that. I don't think that it's you have it or you don't. I think that you were probably born with a certain amount and then your childhood, your upbringing gave you a certain amount. But as an adult, I think the most important thing that we can do is take responsibility of all of the things in our life, take control of our relationships, our finances, our career, our self image, all of the things that make us us, all the things that make us happy. And I don't think that confidence is the exception. So I look at confidence really similarly to how anybody would look at anything in regards to like the gym, where it's like if you're working day in and day out and you're putting good things into your body and you're showing up consistently, you're going to the gym, you're strengthening muscles, you're doing something that builds that muscle every single day, it's going to get better. And the more that you do it, the more that it compounds. So it creates an even bigger result. And I believe that confidence is the exact same way. If you do not work it, it will not get stronger. But if you make daily attempts at being more of the person that you want to be, that is what's going to build that confidence. And that confidence is only going to grow and compound over time.
I love that answer so much. And just to give you a little backstory about myself, and one reason why I did stop on the video too, because I was like that, I just related to it so much because I knew it was so true. Because um, people that meet me now, they're like, oh yeah, he's pretty confident. You know what I mean? He's has a lot of confidence in himself. He's very self aware. He knows who he is, et cetera, et cetera. But I was like, that is like a process of, like you said, exactly like you said, my upbringing. because I come from like a big football town, I guess. And they kind of breed you when you're young, like, oh, this is like, they start us out young, and like they put a lot of money, a lot of resources into us as we get into high school and whatnot. But I remember being in middle school. It was the start of middle school, and they had 100 kids out there, right? Because you go from elementary school to middle school, so it's like, well, we're having tryouts. Who wants to be here for football and for athletics, and who doesn't? And obviously, you have standouts, and I happen to have been one of, like, the few standouts as far as athletically at that age. And I remember the coach. It was probably on the third or fourth day, because they're screaming at us, telling us what to do. They're running us to death. Everyone's tired, just to rule out all the weak ones that don't really want to be there. And I remember on day 3 or 4, granted, I was a very shy kid. I was so shy. I was the shyest kid I knew, right? And they were like, "Hey, Adams, Nick, you need to come up to the front and lead the stretches." And I was like, I thought I was gonna like sink into the grass. Like, I was so nervous, right?
Mhm.
And out of pure like fear, I kind of remembered them and I did it, but it was the most uncomfortable thing I think I've ever done. And then as the years went on, and then obviously you get into high school, like I said, everybody knew everybody. Football was very important. All the high school teams were in the paper, all this stuff. So it became real. It was like a lot of pressure. But by that time, that practice, like you said, had been exercised so much that going into my adult life, I learned that I had to do it, but I never put words to it like you did when I saw your video. I had just always been like, oh, this is an opportunity to practice, my confidence, or this is an opportunity to make myself feel uncomfortable. So I have to do this.
Do you think
Does
there
that
was
make
ever like a big aha moment that really made you switch it? Or do you think that it was just these little moments along the way that added up?
I think there was. So there definitely was. So it was little by little, but it was subconsciously. So I didn't know it was happening. I want to say when I was a junior in high school, um, and I was playing football, and the sport is naturally like, everyone's like, you know what I mean, like getting up, like my teammates were getting excited, all this stuff. And I remember I would sit there before games and like just like be calm. And
Mm-hmm.
in the past, I had been calm for other reasons, like to calm my nerves, right?
Yeah.
But my junior year, it had snapped. I want to say the first game of that year, because it wasn't about calming my nerves. It was about using them to perform better.
Yeah.
And obviously that was a sport, but in my adult life, that transcribed to like, being a better public speaker when I'm doing briefings, or you know what I mean, being able to be a better people person when I need networking or whatever the case may be. So you can always transcribe that into many different things. But there was definitely a time where I was more aware,
Mm-hmm.
but then I would say once I got into my adult life, like, and I was joined the Air Force, then there was other times where it clicked again and clicked again. And then I think just
Yeah.
that awareness, I don't think it's a ever like, it's everlasting, basically.
Yeah.
Like you said, you only continue to get better and better and better.
Yeah. And I think I think that it's so good too that you explain like where it started, where you were nervous just to lead a stretching session, because you're like, oh, like everybody has that innate fear and that
Yeah.
nervousness and that second guessing of themselves. It's just, how do you redirect that energy? How do you deal with those feelings when it does come up? Because it's fine to be nervous, it's fine to be scared, it's fine to not be confident for any situation, for any reason. But at the end of the day, the goal is to become more confident, just like it would be to progress in your football career, just like it would be to progress in the gym or your regular like career in life. All of those things take time and effort to get better at. But if you stop doing it all together, you're not going to get any better. You're going to go backwards, if anything. So it's like that consistent pursuit of like, okay, this is a challenge. This is uncomfortable. Let's face it. This is another challenge. This is another issue. Let's face it. Let's face it. Let's face it. Like after you do that so much, it really does just become your automatic program. That's how you handle conflict. It's how you handle issues. It's how you like handle any kind of insecurity or self-doubt or any of those things. It's like, okay, let's handle it. Like, let's face this head on.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. So another thing too that I wanted to get your take on and just elaborate, because I think this is I wouldn't say this is something I struggle with, but it's definitely something that I hadn't said out loud, right? Because obviously I believe, you know, our biggest strength and our biggest weaknesses is what's between the ears, right? Our own head. And one of your videos too, you're talking about being married to ideas and how in life you don't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing I think, especially with men in particular, but it happens to everybody. Uh, they struggle with because being married to idea as, oh, I got to be a provider. This is the way, you know, I need to be financially stable, or this is the way I need to, you know, what I mean, pave the way for whatever the case may be. I just want your take to elaborate again on being married to ideas and how that it's okay not to be.
Yeah. So I think the when you really look at life, like you're the only person that you're really doing your whole life with. You know, you have your mother and your father, you may have siblings, you may have lifelong friends, you may have a lifelong partner. But at the end of the day, you're the only person that you're going to go to sleep with every day, that you're going to wake up with every morning, that you're going to eat every meal with. Like you are the only person that you're going to share your entire life with. You want it to be as positive as it can. You want that relationship with you to be incredible. And I think one of the most important things that we can all do for ourselves as individuals is get to know ourselves, know what's important to us, know what matters, know what like pulls at your heart, know what pushes you away from things, like what is most important for you in this lifetime, what matters to you. And I say that first because I think men have different roles in society than women do. And they're both very pressured in very different ways and vastly different
Mhm.
ways. But, you know, they're pressured to be this ideal man or this ideal woman or whatever the case may be. And I think the biggest thing there is saying, like, I don't need to be this stereotypical ideal man or woman. What does that actually mean to me? What does it mean for me to be the best version of myself? What role, like whether it's like you being a husband to somebody, you being a business owner, you being an employee, you being just an individual, what is it that you really want in those roles? How do you want those roles to look? Which is why my favorite fucking question of all time is why. Like,
Mhm.
oh, there's this, you know, like you said, like, oh, like men have to be a provider. Well, why? How does that play a role in your life? Where does that play a role? Why is that important to you? And also, how? Being a provider can be a million different things. There's a
For sure.
million different ways you can provide for yourself. You can provide for your wife, your children, your family, your partner, your friends, anyone. There's a million different ways that you can provide. You have to decide, and this comes from like you said before, like you really know yourself. That's really
Yeah.
good. Don't skip out on that piece of like getting to know yourself and be like, why am I like this? Why do I have friends that are like this, that challenge me in this ways? Why do I admire and look up to these types of people? Usually the people that we admire have some kind of quality or characteristic or character, like the way that they carry themselves, their integrity. They have similar things in them that we see in ourselves. They're an inspiration for a reason beyond their words or their actions. It's something about who they are. And I think that the more we can all question ourselves and be like, why am I the way that I am? Why is this important to me? Why does this matter? What do I want my life to look like? What do I want my role to be? What's an ideal relationship, an ideal career, ideal lifestyle for me? Because the coolest thing that you can do is live a life that is solely designed for you. Not all the other people, not the approval of people, not the pleasing and satisfaction of family and friends and society and any of those things. It's like what really matters to you as an individual. And you're going to get there by asking yourself why, asking yourself those questions of like, why is this important to me? How do I want this to look in my life? And then also not being judgmental. I think that's
Yeah.
a huge piece of it. It's like one is self-awareness, two is asking yourself a million questions, just keep getting to a deeper level, a deeper reason, a deeper meaning. And three, like the very last part of that is just letting whatever comes up. It's fine. Like whatever your truest answers are, those are your truest answers. That's who you are. It's what you want out of life. It's what's important to you. And the sooner that we get to accept ourselves and those answers, the easier it is to actually find people and places and things and careers that really align with all of the things that we want.
No, I love that answer so much. And you talked about the three things that you need as far as awareness, the judgmental, and when you talk about being able to sit with yourself, right, and not lie to yourself. I think that's a it's a big like it's a
Yeah.
big generational problem, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
that we have. And what the downfall to that is, right, is you become less self-aware.
Yeah.
Like, and I learned that through like the whole sports thing too, because when we would do bad, it's like it's going on the news. Like this was weekly. This wasn't like,
Yeah. And that's a
oh,
lot of pressure
like
for a young kid as well. Like it's a lot of pressure for a fully fledged adult, never mind a kid, your kid in high school.
for sure. And you'd have to sit there, and it wasn't just me. There was a bunch of people from the other high school and the towns around us that this culture had built. And what ended up happening is, you finish a game, and you know it's gonna come out on the paper. You know it's gonna be on the news, and you would sit there with yourself, and there was no running from it, right?
It's
And it was I don't think it's anything that a teenager should have to go through, but it helped me so much as an adult now, because when I make mistakes, or when I felt like I should do better, or if I'm not asking myself why, or if something is missing, I
mm-hmm.
can sit there and look myself in the mirror and not lie to myself, because you shouldn't be able to lie to yourself. But sometimes people, their voice that says, hey, you can do this better, or you have more potential, whatever the case may be, they just try to turn that down.
Yeah.
And then once you start, then like you said, it becomes a habit, and you exercise turning down lying to yourself, and then you miss out on a lot of potential you have, not only just as an individual, but just as like a friend, as a, you know what I mean, as a partner, or a family member, whatever the case may be. So I definitely hear you. and uh
Mm-hmm.
and
I
uh
agree though.
yeah.
I think that was probably that was like a really awesome, obviously it was hard to hear that. It's criticism, but it's hard to hear sometimes. But you just go, you know what? That wasn't my best game. And that was the truth. And I could
Yeah.
sit here and I could have people feel sorry for me, and I could feel sorry for myself, and I could be like, it wasn't that bad, but it almost feels better to just be like, that was terrible, and I have better in me, and I'll do better next time. Like that feels better because it feels like you have real control versus, oh, it wasn't that bad. And you're like, oh, maybe it wasn't. Like, no, recognize the wrong for what it was. It wasn't your best. It was wrong. It was the wrong thing to do. It was the wrong thing to say. It was the wrong thing to pursue, whatever the case may be. Then you're able to move on way faster than if you were sitting there lying to yourself.
For sure. And even if you did your absolute best, right? Let's say you did your absolute best, and then like it was somebody else, XYZ, that also teaches you like, hey, like that's life too. You know what I mean? Sometimes you're gonna give it your absolute best, and sometimes your best is not enough, which
Yeah.
is okay. You know what I
So,
mean? Like
and it's
that's
expected.
okay.
Like, we live in a world where it's like, you can be anything and you can do anything. And I believe those things if you work towards them and putting the time and the effort. But there are also certain things that are just not possible. And like, there's nothing wrong with that too. There's nothing wrong with trying to go for something and it not working out. And you saying, do we quit while we're ahead? Or do we like double down? Like, do we fix the problems? Do we weed out the issues? Do we look ourselves in the face and say, like, this is how you need to be better? Like, those are the only two options when you're really going for something.
For sure, for sure. So I kind of want to swing into the whole relationship advice topic, because I think one thing, and this is me personally, I definitely am human by all means, and I'm not perfect, and I try to strive to be better each and every day. But I think one thing I've struggled with, and I think many people do, uh, with people our ages, I am very aware of myself, and like I try to like project that out. Like I know who I am. I know my strengths. I know my weaknesses. I know where I'm trying to go. Um, and I'm naturally pretty confident. And I think a lot of people can be intimidated by that. And I wanted your take on, I guess, what do you think the most, even though there's a lot, what do you think the most important um advice you could give somebody in their 20s about relationships?
Honestly, it sounds a little cliche, but I would say date yourself first. Whether you're in a relationship with somebody, whether you're so single it hurts, whether you're somewhere in between the two, one of the best things that you can do is date yourself. I think sometimes just like the career and the amount of money that would make you finally happy, I think so many people put pressure on a relationship being this source of love and happiness. And when it's the right fit, it really is. It's a beautiful thing. But until that point, you can't just put your happiness towards the back burner and think, like, oh, I won't be happy until this person comes into my life. So, the best advice, especially for 20-year-olds, whether you're in a relationship, out of a relationship, single, nowhere, somewhere in between, is like, date yourself, make your life what you want your life to be, have the experiences that you want to have, create a version of yourself that's going to align with this person that you're trying to have come into your life.
For sure. And that's great advice. And fortunately for me, when I joined the Air Force, I was kind of forced to, because I was overseas, and every year I moved every year for the last 6 years. I
Wow.
think, yeah. So I've moved 5 times in the past 6 years, and that's not normal for most people in the military. Usually they stay somewhere every 2 to 3 years and they're moving somewhere else. But my
Yeah.
situation was just a little bit one of those like rare cases compared to most people. And
Mhm.
I didn't, I tried to make connections, and I tried, to not necessarily like settle down, because I knew I was moving all the time, but I tried to build bonds, me, with people I thought that I could see potential with down the line or whatnot. And unfortunately, those a lot of those didn't work out. But still, part of the process of all those people that came in and out of my life are still great people.
Mhm.
So when you talk about dating yourself, when one person is finally ready, you know what I mean? They're okay with being on their own. They are focusing on themselves. I know naturally, right? Somebody they say, well, it will find you. But what if do you think there's anything a person should be doing once they get in that position of like, I'm okay with myself, et cetera, to like, oh, or maybe I can take inch steps towards, trying to get in the dating space, or find a
Yeah.
good person.
Honestly, I talk to a lot of women and men, so I feel like I have a little bit of both sides.
Yeah.
And like, sometimes you just can't be scared to actually put yourself out there. It doesn't matter whether it's like walking up to a girl at a bar, giving someone your phone number, letting someone know that you're actually interested in getting to know them. Like, we do live in a world where there's a lot of communication behind a screen, and you miss a little of the confidence kind of, because it's easier to say something behind a screen and then walk away from your phone or just really not think too much about it. But in real life, I think that any relationship requires a level of vulnerability. And when you're vulnerable with somebody, whether you're a man or a woman, it's not so much about being scared about how that person takes it and how that person reacts, as it is of knowing at your core that you did what was the most honorable thing to do for yourself, which is explain to someone how you feel, what you think, what you want. And if you're able to do that, then you did all that you needed to do in a situation, and there's nothing more to worry about. But I think that, and I think it's natural. I think this is natural. I don't think that being scared of vulnerability is like a new age thing. I just think everybody has some level of fear of rejection and not being wanted and not being the person, or something not working out in some way. And it's like, that's fine, but what's your outcome? What's your goal? If you like somebody, I think the best way to handle that is probably to let them know in some way or another. And that little bit of vulnerability, that little bit of putting yourself out there, it doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl or who you date, that little bit of putting yourself out there is just confirmation to yourself that, like, I'm going to have integrity with my feelings. I'm going to have integrity with the people that I want to be with. I'm going to have integrity in any way, shape, and form that I can. And it's not about being like fearful of what the outcome is, because there's no fear. There's zero fear. You're like, if I said how I feel, if I said something that's on my mind and it's not received well, then it's just not received well. That's just not the person for me. And if they're in a place where they can't like emotionally compute their own stuff, their own issues, then that may not be the person you want to be with anyways. And I think that it's so funny because there's all this advice about relationships and whatnot, but you really do have to sit there and like take a good look at yourself and be like, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? How can I be better? How can I provide the things for others that I want as well? Like, how can I be a good partner? Sometimes we're so worried about the other person that we don't sit there and look at ourselves.
And I think too, just to, piggyback off what you just said, because, and I'm only talking about myself because I only know, what I know when it comes to myself and my past experiences when it comes to trying to find a connection. I think one thing, like I said, back to that struggle, is I'm such aware of who I am. So naturally, I am a very vulnerable person. And I let people know, like, off the gate, like, I'm just very, very forward. I don't try to, and it, especially as a man too, like that could be like, kind of like, oh, wait, what? Like, why are you so upfront, honest? Why are you so like,
Awesome.
we got it, and we're back live. To everybody listening, there's definitely like this kind of pause and like super change in conversation. That's because of memory issues with the computer, but we're gonna keep pressing and continue with Miss Liv on what we were talking about. I think the last thing I was saying was with like relationships and being having that awareness or whatnot. What I've struggled with is I was so vulnerable, and I just am upfront with who I am and as a person. And I think a lot of times most people in their mid 20s or people that are my age, 24, 25, they tend to start figuring it out now about how vulnerability is important and whatnot. So when you're like full-fledged, like, this is me, like this is et cetera, I've been this person, like I think it can be very intimidating to a person. And
I think it's what you said before though, like when you were talking about your performance in football, and it's like, am I going to lie to myself? That's what vulnerability is. That's all it is. It's like, am I choosing to be honest with the feelings that are going on in my body, my mind, my soul, like what I truly feel about a situation? Am I going to keep this to myself? Am I going to try to pretend like this isn't going on and give this version of what's going on, this like pretty tied up ribbon version? or am I going to be honest? The good, the happy, the sad, anything in between. It's like, it goes back to what you said before about like, are you going to lie to yourself or are you going to be honest with yourself? And you having that as kind of like a mind muscle memory where you've been working on that for years, like maybe that's why vulnerability comes easier to you. And just because it doesn't come easy to someone else doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, you wouldn't be a good pair with someone like that. It just means that maybe one of your strengths is one of their weaknesses. And maybe there's room for both of you to grow throughout that relationship and the dynamic of that relationship.
No, for sure. And I think the best example, and it's not anything very deep or intuitive or whatnot, but the best example I think would be like I remember, or not I remember, but anytime like you're playing Bluetooth or music on a speaker or whatnot, and you're in like a public setting or in a car, and like something comes up, like a song comes up, right? There's like, oh, you listen to that,
Mm-hmm.
like like Taylor Swift or you know, or just like or something where it's like, oh, you're like a very like you know, you portray like a masculine man, like this is weird. And I'm like, dude, like ain't there's nothing wrong with listening to Taylor Swift, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like party in the USA. But then that to some people, because they we naturally reflect on ourselves and they're like, whoa, like you really are like, you know what I mean? Like in tune with who you are. And some people they they down spiral with
Mhm.
that, you know, when and it's not everybody's, a lot of people benefit from it. They're like, hey, I could be more confident, I can be like that and just be who I am. But some people also struggle with the opposite, you know what I mean, the opposite side of that.
But like, I look at
But
it as like, what's the alternative, right? Like,
yeah,
if you're going to be worried about a song or this or that or something that you know what it is, like all the people that really fucking love you, like really really love you in your life, like your closest friends, the person you choose to spend your life with, your family, anybody you consider family, uh all of those people love you for who they are. And if you show them some side of you, whether it's a song or an interest or a hobby or any of those things that are like regular human being traits, and that's the thing that makes them be like, yeah, I'm not interested in having a relationship with you, that's fucking crazy. But that's a real
yeah,
fear that we have. Like, oh, me putting on Taylor Swift and liking it is going to be a problem. Like, it's not.
yeah.
Like, we think that other people think about us way more than they actually do. And if we just
Yes,
sat
that
there
is
for two
it.
seconds and was like, what am I worried about? Like, if these people don't like this, then what is the point? This actually, I am going to do so many of these listeners such a solid right now. So on Netflix, there's this guy who's a comedian. His name's Daniel Sloss, and he does um, a series. I don't know what it's called, but if you like type in Daniel Sloss on Netflix, there's like a bunch of like episodes. I want to say they are. I think they're different specials, and one of them is called like Jenga or Jigsaw. I think it's called Jigsaw. It's like the whole thing's funny, but he also has this huge fucking analogy about relationships and love and the person that you're going to be with. And I swear to God, me playing that has caused so many breakups for my friends. So like, whether you're in a relationship, out of a relationship, single, it doesn't matter. I tell everyone to listen to it because I think it's the truest thing out there on relationships. And one of the things that he said is, if you do not love 100% of me, you do not love me. You love a fabricated idea of who you would want me to be, not who I actually am. So whether it's what your interests are, what your career choices are, what you like and don't like for music, the big things, the little things, everything in between. If you do not like 100% of the person and accept them fully for who they are, then you do not love them, because that's who they are at the end of the day. They're not this fabricated version, like you're saying, of like all masculinity. Like, no, you're gonna like a
Yeah.
Taylor Swift song. And maybe if Taylor Swift isn't your vibe, like it's gonna be Katy Perry or it's gonna be Adele or it's gonna be something that you just go,
Yeah.
oh, that's a little out of the norm. And you're like, yeah, that little bit that's out of the norm is what makes me me.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. That's such good advice. And I think that I think that people, you know, and the people listening here just take that and just Say it's okay to be vulnerable. Like, it's gonna help your mental health. It's gonna help you just in everyday life, and you're just gonna thrive. You know what I mean? And that doesn't thriving doesn't mean you're not gonna have bad days. That doesn't mean that it's not gonna get, rough at times. But what it means is you're gonna be genuine to who you are. And that to me, that is living.
I
Right.
couldn't agree more. I think you're so right. You hit the nail on the head. Like, at the end of the day, the vulnerability is you just being honest with yourself and others. And just like you said, it's not going to avoid the bad days. You're still going to have bad days, but you being honest about them is what's going to allow you to actually overcome
For sure, for sure. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I got a few more questions, and I'll get you out of here. Back to
them.
the
You're
fam.
good. You're good.
Well, we could keep going. Like I said, the whole screen thing, that doesn't even bother me because a lot of people, what we're talking about is important. You know what I mean? The visuals is just like whatever. I
Yeah.
just, I just, I just love this conversation. But I do this every podcast. If you could sit down, dinner table, 4 people, dead or
Oh my,
alive, who are your 4 people?
it's actually sweet. I
What?
wasn't, oh my God, I wasn't expecting this answer at all because I've heard that and I've never actually thought about it because it almost seems like too big of a concept to like wrap my head
Yeah.
around. But oh my God, this is so cute. So my mom actually passed away when I was like 19 years old. She had breast cancer. And so she was a huge influence in my life. So when you said dead or alive, I'm like, oh, I would want to sit with that person. And then I was like, well, who else would I want to be? I'm thinking like, oh, am I going to want all these like famous people, influential people, all the people that you're kind of drawn to? And I was just like, no, like I would want my mom, I would want my brother, I would want one of my best friends, and I would want my boyfriend. Like I would want all of those people, the people that I care about most, to be at like a dining room table dinner together. And I was just like, oh, that's like such a cute answer. Like sometimes it really is so simple. It's not like this big, I'm like literally realizing this as I'm saying it, but I'm like, it's not this big, huge thing. It's just about like the people that you love most.
For sure. And I actually think that that's an amazing answer because it goes back to that's you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And that's your answer. It wasn't transcribed of, well, I've heard this before in other people's answers. Like, no,
Yeah.
that's your genuine answer. It came from your heart, and that's how you feel. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is why you need to listen to yourself. And obviously we all need to learn, and how do we educate ourselves? Through books, through advice, through numerous ways. But at the end of the day, every decision we make on the day-to-day basis goes through our own head. And if you cannot have the confidence, have the awareness, and just have the genuine ability to make your own decisions for you, then again, I don't think you're living. It's not a life that you're living. It's a life that is just passing by. You know, because if you would have been like, oh well, I heard so and so say this that, and then like, oh,
Yeah.
I could see.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's just like,
oh, I'd have Drake and I'd have so and so, and then I'd have this person. You're just like, where did you get these answers? Like, is that really your answer? But I also want to
yeah,
say, make sure that you have really good people in your life. I think that like good quality people bring out great things in all of us. It makes us want to be better people. And I also want to thank you because I've asked myself that question. I've seen it come up on other videos and I've asked myself, and I never even gave myself the 2 seconds that it took to answer that question. And because you answered it, or you asked it, I was able to answer it. And I think that, that's the beauty of also surrounding yourself with like minded people is like, they're going to challenge you, they're going to encourage you, they're going to push you to grow because they're doing it for themselves as well.
for sure. And hopefully, I hope this is definitely not the last time we do something like this, because it's like Oh man, the things that you have to bring to the table are very not only just inspirational, but they're so real. And I think, like you said, when you surround yourself with good people and you're able to hear, from another person's perspective, like what that is and what it is or what it's not, and then be able to just make it your own. You know, because I'm sure, over a period of time, there's things that I might have an opinion on that you differ from,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, et cetera, et cetera. But as long as you're able to, express them, and then that perspective just helps you out through your whole life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
We learn
I-
from each other too. I think sometimes we forget that. Like anything that you're going through as an individual, not only has someone else gone through, like someone else out there in the world, but also you'd be so surprised to know that most of your friends have felt the exact way that you have. And what a beautiful opportunity to open that dialogue, open that conversation, and be like, have you ever experienced this? And what did you do? Because maybe you have insight that I have, and maybe I have insight that you don't have.
and that's why I have to do this, because there's a lot of people who not necessarily don't have a voice, but may not have the confidence, may not have
Yeah.
the awareness to verbally express it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's some things that I've said on this podcast that sparked your mind, and there's some things that I said even before this podcast with your TikTok that have sparked my mind as well. And to everyone out there listening, I hope that this is some great content that you can take with you in your day-to-day life and just live it up. But with that, to end it, because I know it's kind of the time frame, like I said, ooh, almost perfect time frame. 4 minutes to spare. Uh, just a
Yes.
little bit under an hour. But before I let you go, one, we have to do this again, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Even if it's in a different capacity, whatever the case may be, because I
Absolutely.
think
Yeah.
I think you're just an incredible person, and you bring so much to the people around you, and I definitely have to give you kudos on that. But let everybody know, please, where they can find you. And yeah, get a hold of you, watch content, everything like that.
Yes, yes. You can find me anywhere. Just live Teixeira. Instagram, TikTok. Really been loving TikTok lately. That's probably where I'm the most active. And I have my podcast as well, but all that is like linked places. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. This conversation has been so great. And I really do look forward to doing this again.
For sure. All right. Thank you guys, everybody. You heard it. Live Texera. You can find her on Instagram. We'll definitely put it down below in the description or whatnot. Live, I hope you have a great rest of your evening. Enjoy your weekend. Everybody else, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right. Bye bye.
Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. For more, be sure to like and subscribe. And y'all take care. See you soon.